Hello and welcome back to live coverage of Apex Con, the inaugural event of 2024, Season 4 here at Apex Gaming in Caldwell, Ohio. I'm Tandy, joined by Ross Merriam. Say hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
We got one round down. We got a lot more to bring you today. 7 total rounds of Swiss and the top 8. We're going to bring you that all live today. First round, we actually had our 3 team winners from yesterday's event in the feature match area, and all 3 of them won. Zero variance game, huh?
Yeah, they are looking to make a clean sweep of the weekend, and today we are featuring someone who also made a deep run yesterday. Our primary feature match is going to have Brian Baker, who is part of the second place team yesterday, so trying to do one better today and get his spot in the Invitational come November, as well as a spot in the upcoming regional championship. He's just come with Scam.
Oh, Rakdos Scam. Honestly, Rakdos Scam making a little bit of a comeback. I think the ley line of the guild pack decks, they often will mulligan. Sometimes they have this opener, this 1 or 2 ley lines, and then they're just really vulnerable to grief. And when you open yourself up to being vulnerable to grief, that's when Scam comes back.
Yeah, and then that combo of the Sign of Draco and Leyline of the Guild Pack can easily be answered by several cards in Rakdos. So they've adopted things like Angrass Rampage,
Shieldred's
Liliana of the Veil,
Edict,
Shieldred's Edict.
various things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And we do see Angrass Rampage in Baker's list. He's got 1 main, 1 sideboard, and a Liliana on the board for those things. But
main event.
Yeah, not going to need to deal with many creatures in this matchup, though.
No, the person that we are really featuring this round is Sean Moss playing Lotus Twiddle Storm. Tell me about this deck.
Yeah, so much like the Lotus Field deck that you see in Pioneer, we're playing Sylvan Scrying, and we're playing some cantrips trying to dig towards the Lotus Field. So that's step 1. Put Lotus Field onto the battlefield. But rather than untap it with what's the 5-mana spell?
Oh, Pour Over the Pages?
Yeah, Pour Over the Pages. We're going a little cheaper. Still have the hidden strings, but also 4 Dreams Grip and 3 Twiddles. So really trying to net a ton of mana. You basically Dreams Grip and Twiddle turn into Dark Ritual, but for blue mana. And then you also play 4 copies of the One Ring. So you can either generate mana with your untap effects or generate additional cards on your big turn, and then eventually win with Underworld Breach, milling yourself out with Tome Scour that you can find with a Wish, 4 copies of Wish in this deck, and then 1 Thassa's Oracle to end the game. And on turns where you can't quite, mill your full deck out, but you're casting a bunch of spells, there's a singleton copy of Eve Progenitor Ooze to wish for.
Okay. The cool thing about this Twiddle Storm deck is that I saw a variation of this strategy in circa 2005 or 2006 in Extended. Tinker for Gilded Lotus, and then Twiddle it a bunch, Mind's Desire for 1,000 in the game. This one, using Underworld Breach, generates a lot more consistency, using the One Ring and untapping and tapping the One Ring. Just really powerful stuff going on in this deck, and I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, I hope it does some cool stuff. The One Ring is certainly going to be an important card against a deck with so much discard and disruption. The Clock out of the Rakdos Scam deck is going to be important. And then the X factor here is these Blood Moons I see. There's a Blood Moon in the main deck for Brian Baker, and then a Blood Moon and a Magus the Moon in the sideboard. Those could be lights out. But that said, you can wish for answers to them. There's 2 Echoing Truths and a Void Snare
and there's
on the
always
sideboard.
Beseiju.
And there is a Beseiju in the main deck, but so we obviously have answers around it, but combined with the pressure and discard spells, that could end up being too much in totality for Sean Moss to deal with.
All right, well, the players are situated and ready in the feature match area, so let's head on down and watch Sean Moss on Twiddle Storm versus Brian Baker on Rakdos Scam. These 2 players here are both 1-0, looking to have a good start. We are just about underway. Got some good backup matches this round, too. Hopefully we'll get to watch some of those. Zine Brunny versus Don Delosier. That's not right.
So that's going to be Brian Baker on your left, starting with this Thoughtseize. Another good basic land match. Nice little Mirage Island.
All right, Thoughtseize. We're going to take a look at Underworld Breach, Vizier, Tumbling Sands, Sylvan Scrying, and 3 lands, none of which are Lotus Field, but one of which is the Beseiju. So we do have some protection from a Blood Moon.
Now, notably, there are 2 basic islands in the deck, but no basic forest, because green is just a splash for Sylvan Scrying. So in order to Beseiju a Blood Moon, you've got to leave up the mana, float it in response, and then channel Beseiju. So that could be tricky for Moss to do.
So that means Misty Rainforest might go get something like Stomping Ground. Is there a Stomping Ground in the deck? Some red source for the Stevens, maybe, but
it's almost all blue.
All right. Looks like Underworld Breach is the grab, the powerful enchantment
Yeah.
from Theros Beyond Death. Absolutely ruined Pioneer for a few months and was instantaneously banned in Legacy.
Interesting that Baker did not take the Sylvan Scrying. Normally against these Lotus Field decks, step one is stop them from putting Lotus Field onto the battlefield.
Right.
So I thought that maybe Baker would have another discard spell as a follow-up, but doesn't seem to have that. Maybe has that one mana copy of Blood Moon and thinks, oh, I don't need to answer the Lotus Field. I already have the answer rolled up.
All right, we're going to go fetching for one of those Surveil lands. They're making their way into every deck, and we're going to bench a Wish. Draw for turn. Looks like a Twiddle of some kind. And now Moss can go ahead and Sylvan Scrying for the Lotus Field if he so chooses, but it looks like we're just going to cycle a Lonely Sandbar instead.
Also interesting, leaving the Sylvan Scrying vulnerable to a discard spell for another turn.
You know, some chance that in the previous turn or two drew a Lotus Field and just doesn't even care about that. Well, here's an Orcish Bowmasters severely punishing the main phase cycle of Lonely Sandbar. We're going to grow that Bowmaster token and deal an extra damage to Sean.
Yeah. So the main phase cycle is because of the potential of drawing Preordain, and then you can cast it this turn.
Yep.
A low value hit, but now and you run the risk of the Bowmaster, and now you don't have Besage you up for Blood Moon potentially. So Sean Moss could get majorly punished if a Blood Moon here comes for Brian Baker.
All right, pressure down. Bowmaster coming in as well as the army token. 3 damage coming across. Sean down to 14.
I think I might have seen a grief in Baker's hand, and knowing that that Sylvan Scrying is there, even without the full scam, might choose to play it.
All right, going back to Sean's turn. We're going to go ahead and play the Sylvan Scrying. Get that Lotus Field and get it down, and now Baker is praying for the one of Blood Moon, and Sean Moss is praying that it ain't there.
True on both counts. But if Moss gets to untap with the Lotus Field, we could be off to the races.
Yeah, it usually takes something like Underworld Breach or the One Ring to really get going. Everything else is kind of just mana batteries, and those are like the 2-card advantage engines. Yeah. But the deck has a lot of ways to churn and cycle.
It could very easily be land 4 next turn, play a One Ring. Now I'm protected for a turn from discard and your attacks.
Yeah.
Draw a couple cards, go off on my next turn.
I'm not sure who the originator of the Twiddle Storm deck is in Modern specifically, but I did see Aspiring Spike playing something very similar a few months ago. And I got to tell you, man, drawing 3-4 cards with the ring and then untapping it and doing it again, then untapping it and doing it again is ridiculous.
A Ruckus Theater here for Brian Baker, getting in on the Surveil land action.
Is that how you spell Ruckus?
Yeah.
I always thought Ruckus was Raucus.
Yeah, it depends.
Are those not the same word?
They are,
they?
But
they are? Okay.
You hear both pronunciations.
I didn't know they were the same word. You learn something new every day, especially when you hang around Rock.
I guess there is Ruckus, Ruckus.
That's what I always thought it was, and
So
I thought that was Raucus or Raucus.
Yeah, it should be Ruckus.
But they basically mean the same thing. It's causing a commotion.
Yeah, it's a noun and adjective of the same concept.
Here's Grief coming down au natural. Going to be taking away one of those cards.
So Baker getting a little greedy with the Grief, wanted to cast it as a creature, and in doing so, he gave Sean Moss the time to play the Sylvan Scrying for Lotus Field. If he takes the Sylvan Scrying, Sean Moss really doesn't have much going on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I can't quite see the hand on Baker's side, so maybe didn't have an extra black card to pitch, but we're going to go back Sean Moss's way and see what we can do on a free turn.
This is a 2-turn clock from Baker, has 6 damage out against 11 life, so Moss knows, isn't going to die to a single bolt either. Could die to something like Dash Ragavan plus Bolt, but almost assuredly has 2 turns here. So could use this turn as a setup turn, cast some cantrips, find either the One Ring.
Yeah, cantrips are scary, though. There's still Bowmaster on the table. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Why cantrip into it when you can just draw it for turn?
What a top deck.
And now, I think it needs to be Blood Moon for Brian Baker, or this could get ugly.
You still got to be a little careful with One Ring versus Bowmaster, but overall, I think that Sean has a nice turn coming up and can draw up to 10 cards and take 10 damage before he really needs to actually get rid of the Bowmaster, assuming Baker doesn't have something like a Lightning Bolt or another Bowmaster in hand.
Yeah, so there is Fire Spout, Grape Shot, and a couple of Lightning Bolts in the sideboard to wish for, and a Brotherhood's End. So
All right.
plenty of ways to answer that. Could also bounce it with a Void Snare, but if Baker leaves mana up, you want to just remove it from the battlefield.
If he's able to have a big turn, can also play a second copy of the One Ring, and then that gives him protection for a turn, and then he can just kind of go off with the one that's in play. Here's another grief, but we got protection, homie.
Yeah, nice 3-2.
Okay. Baker here. Look of someone who thinks they might be dead. Attacks don't matter. I don't really know what's going on in the tank here. Maybe Baker is waiting for Sean to reveal hand, but he has protection. All right, so we're going to grow, but we don't take the damage. That should not be a damage.
Yeah, still under the protection of the ring.
Okay, we will go back to upkeep for Sean Moss and take one from the ring, but the Bowmaster is half fizzled. Can just target itself and get the counter. Take one from the ring, down to 10. I see a Dream Script. We can start making some mana. We can start making some more cards.
Yeah, and it's just about navigating this carefully so you don't die to the Bowmaster. You should also be cognizant of a potential Lightning Bolt, because Baker does have a mana up.
This kind of stuff is Ross's specialty. I'm going to let him take the wheel on this one. All right, here's the ring. Going to draw 2.
Draw 2, take 2, so going to fall to 8. Just needs to generate enough mana and find a wish to clear this Bowmaster, and then keep going.
That's all. Just has to have it all.
So it does need to find a wish relatively quickly, basically in the top, 7 cards of the deck.
I just saw another ring in hand, man. I don't think he needs it. I think we're going to see a ring cast and then a bunch of Twiddles cast on everything. So he might just have it here. We'll see what he got. See what he can do.
It's a question of how many untappers there are. I think there's another Vizier in hand. Ooh, just tapping out for another ring.
I believe he has a land, so we can
Yeah.
play land untap Lotus Field with a Dream's Grip or similar, and then maybe untap the other ring and keep going.
That will do it.
Yeah. This is just to give protection so that Bowmaster doesn't keep dealing him damage.
Yeah.
He's trying to figure out which ring to keep.
And the new ring is worth a free card, but then you're still a card behind on each activation. So with the plan that you're going to untap this ring multiple times this turn, better to just keep the old one. Are we going to see a bolt in response here? They've already ringed.
Is there a chance that Sean has passed the turn?
Maybe. That would be awkward.
I'm pretty sure I saw 2 Dreams Grips in hand. We could go untap the Lotus Field, then untap the One Ring, and the Bowmaster doesn't deal us any damage anymore, and we just keep going off. Now, maybe Brian is fetching a response to see the top card of the deck, but oh my. Oh, wow. Unless I'm wrong about Sean's hand, but... Whew.
I think it might just be cantrip set. There's definitely a consider. I can see that. But now we're in a really tricky spot because you're going to take 2 from the One Ring next turn. Go to 4. So you need to be able to remove this Bowmaster before you draw 3 more cards or 4 more cards. So you get to C3.
What land is that? Is that not a...
It's a Teleria West. There's a Teleria West in hand too.
No, is that not a Misty Rainforest right there?
No, that's a breeding pool.
Did he shock?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oof.
Ooh, I think we might have... Did we miss a Bowmaster trigger?
Perhaps. Couldn't target face from the ring anyway.
Oh, yeah, true. Okay, so yeah, that consider comes without any loss of life.
Should be down to 4 from the One Ring.
There's definitely a Dream's Grip in hand.
We're thumbing through the sideboard, so that means maybe Wish was drawn.
Yeah, trying to figure out which answer we want to use in the Bowmaster. Void Snare is not the one you want to use. Baker has mana up to recast the Bowmaster.
Yeah, there's the bolt.
Yeah, Bolt is probably the best one because it's just the cheapest, and you don't need to remove the other threats.
All right, so tap the Lotus Field and the Boseiju. We float a red. I guess we can start with blue and then untap it so we can generate a bunch of mana.
I think he's going for the float red. Dreams Grip the Lotus Field, so now 3 red floating. Lotus Field untaps. And I think we need to use one more untapper. Let's cycle that Vizier. Seen on a card. I guess that triggers the Bowmaster, which you want to avoid doing, but you need to get a little more mana because right now, I guess you have enough because there's 3 floating, so we have 7 total mana right now. So you can wish with 4 left over, then bolt and still have 3.
And that leaves Vizier and another Dreams Grip in hand, maybe. But
yeah, so you can use one of those to untap Lotus Field, so you have more mana, and one of them to untap the One Ring, and that's going to draw 7 cards because you still have an activation of the ring for 3. The untap then activates for 4.
All right.
With 7 cards, you should be able to find enough to keep going off.
Here's a wish. It looks like we're floating 2 blue and a red. That's kind of what Baker is keeping track of. We're going to spin the red to bolt the Bowmaster from the sideboard with the wish. See if Baker has another Bowmaster or something to protect it. If he had something like Not Dead After All, this would be a great spot to play it to bring it back and keep the Bowmasters going.
Yeah, that would be devastating.
All right, 2 blue floating. Sean Moss, what you got?
But didn't have it, and now we can just start drawing cards. You got another Bowmaster? No. So nothing going for Baker here at this point. The jig is up. Anything relevant he would have had is no longer going to do anything. Sean also, I think, was being careful there to not draw cards with anything before wishing because he was at 4. So
Right.
wanted to keep himself out of bolt range.
Agreed.
Smart.
Okay, Vizier cycles, untaps the Lotus Field.
Yeah. Could play another Lotus Field here so that the hidden strings in the deck are better.
Mm-hmm. All right, 3 blue. We're going to go down to 2 blue floating. Going to play Preordain, looking for an untapper. 1 on top, 1 bottom. So seems like we found what we were looking for.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to untap the Lotus Field down to 0 floating.
Probably want to use the green from that Boseiju when we can for something like Vizier.
Ooh, old school Twiddle. Look like 7th edition Twiddle. Another Preordain. 2 blue floating. Buckle up, buckaroos. This one might take a minute.
Is anyone tracking the storm count? I doubt that Moss is going to try to win with Progenitor Ooze, but I think this game will end with Thassa's Oracle pretty easily.
Look, we'll go back and check the tape if that's the ooze. All right, well, there's Underworld Breach, so that's game. We need 1 more untap of the Lotus Field to make red.
Yeah, so we should be able to use the last Twiddle to untap Lotus Field, then start breaching, generate a ton of mana with the untappers in the graveyard, then use the Wish in the graveyard to find Tome Scour, and then you can start looping Tome Scour and an untap effect. You lose 1 card in the graveyard for each loop, because escaping Tome Scour plus a Twiddle effect is 6 cards exiled, and Tome Scour only mills 5, but as long as you start with a giant graveyard, that should be enough to mill your entire deck, and then there is a Thassa's Oracle that you can escape with the Breach.
All right, here's Breach. Let's see if that's the line that Moss wants to go with. If I'm Baker, I'm probably trying to save time here, but maybe he just wants to see more of the deck. This Underworld Breach all but locks it up. I mean, this is just an entire graveyard full of untap effects that can go for Lotus Field, then the One Ring, then draw the deck, then play Vizier. So we're in garbage time, but, you know.
Gotta let the players get their camera time in.
Oh, yeah. Baker had enough camera time yesterday, in my opinion.
Okay, going for an untap on the ring now.
Draw 4. All right, hidden strings, untapping. And Baker says, yeah, all right, okay.
The hidden strings netting a mana plus 5 cards. That's
With Underworld Breach, you can just do it a bunch of times. You can just literally draw the deck.
yeah. You just have to be careful not to deck yourself
Right.
by getting yourself below the number of counters on the One Ring. But at that point, it's pretty easy to just generate a bunch of mana and wish for the Tome Scour.
All right, game one goes to Sean Moss's Twiddle Storm. Brian Baker couldn't quite handle the Lotus Field plus all the untaps and the One Rings, but we have some help in the sideboard. I'm going to ask Ross, what does Brian Baker have from Rakdos Scam to compensate to maybe make this matchup a little bit easier?
Right, so in the sideboard, I see one copy of Angrass Rampage, a second copy of Blood Moon, two Bone Crusher Giant, a Cursed Totem, an Engineered Explosives, two Kolaghan's Command, two Legion's End, a Liliana of the Veil, a Magus of the Moon, a Shieldred the Apocalypse, a Surgical Extraction, and an Unlicensed Hearse.
A Singleton guy, huh?
Yeah, a lot of singletons here. I love the moons. I like the Liliana of the Veil. I like the Shieldred, and I like the Graveyard Hate, Surgical Extraction, and Hearse against Underworld Breach. So that gives you 4, 5, 6 cards at least to bring in. There's plenty of removal that you can bring out. There's basically no creatures to answer. So Fatal Push, Molten Collapse, Angrass Rampage, Terminate, which is 7 cards in the main, can all come out.
Yep.
And a Lightning Bolt. So maybe we bring in the couple Bone Crushers too, just to get some more creatures.
And you get around the One Ring, so I think that's a fine play.
Yes, and yeah, Bone Crush Stomping. Yeah, that should be the Bone Crusher should definitely come in then. So I think that's a pretty easy 8-for-8 swap.
Okay. On the other side of things, Sean Moss is a Wish sideboard, but does he have anything in the sideboard that can come in au natural? Maybe some defense against the old Blood Moons?
Looks like 8 Wish targets. It's the Progenitor Ooze, a Brotherhood's End, a Fire Spout, a Grape Shot, a Pick Your Poison, a Tome Scour, the 4th copy of Underworld Breach in case you want to wish for that, and a Void Snare. Those will all likely stay in. The cards that could come in are 3 Defense Grid, but this isn't a counterspell matchup.
Yep.
2 copies of Echoing Truth, potentially. That's a nice answer to Blood Moon because you can cast it off your basic island.
Yes.
So I imagine at least one of those will come in. And then 2 Lightning Bolts. I like bringing in some removal to the main just to keep the pressure off of you. Like, dealing with an early Ragavan is quite nice. Dealing with an early Grief that was scammed is nice. And then, of course, answering Orcish Bowmaster, which was the problematic card there in Game 1. So I expect a couple bolts to come in as well.
All right, while these players are finishing up their sideboarding and shuffling for game number 2, I'd like to take this time to say thank you to our sponsors for this weekend's event. Wings Etc. Grill and Pub, wonderful family-friendly restaurant up on the hill. We're going to be heading there after work today and get us some of them cauliflower wings. I'm salivating just thinking about them, honestly. Thank you so much to Ghost Energy. Ghost makes great energy products, and they also sponsor some really cool esports teams, including one of my favorites from my old PUBG days. Big fan. Thank you so much to SpiceRack.gg. They're a brand new tournament software that we are partnering with to bring you tournaments here for the next few months at least, and we're hoping to help them make a better product as well as for them to help us make better tournaments. And we couldn't thank them enough. They actually even sent somebody up, an agent, to come help us for our tournament this weekend. So thank you to Vic and the team of folks like Evan from Spice Rack. And then last but not least, thank you so much to Ultimate Guard. Ultimate Guard is the industry leader when it comes to TCG supplies for card games, from the Katana sleeves to the Sidewinder deck box and the Archive collection holder. Ultimate Guard's got you covered. Make sure to check your local game store for Ultimate Guard products. We have a ton of stuff like that here at the Apex Gaming home store, and you can come check us out here in Caldwell, Ohio. Get you some Ultimate Guard product.
Okay, players ready to draw hands for game 2, and one thing I'm going to watch out for in this game is, does Brian Baker learn his lesson and utilize his discard more aggressively to stop Lotus Field from entering the battlefield?
Yeah.
That Sylvan Scrying could have been taken with the Thoughtseize. Instead, he went for the Breach, and then he had Grief in hand. And
he had a Fatal Push in hand for a while, too. I'm wondering if that was held onto for some reason.
But Sean, gave him the extra turn to potentially Grief away the Sylvan Scrying. He didn't take advantage, and Lotus Field able to grind through the disruption later on with the One Ring. So I think it's really, much like in Pioneer. If you keep the Lotus Fields off the table, the deck doesn't do much. Twiddle doesn't do a whole lot. Now that, they can slowly get there. If you make 4 land drops, play a One Ring, start using your Twiddles to draw cards, and find a Lotus Field, you can go off immediately after playing it. But it's a lot easier to just find it early.
All right, so Rakdos Scam, other than the turn 1 double Grief with Not Dead After All, what are you kind of looking for as your opener?
Ragavan.
Rogovan.
Because Rogovan,
Turn to Blood Moon.
there's very little in the way of creature removal, so it's likely to live, and that mana advantage that it generates is huge. You know, you can just run away with the game super easily, play all your disruption, and get a clock going at the same time. So the tempo advantage from an early Rogovan is really important. Early Thought Seizes are going to be great. Really, there's a lot of good cards in the matchup. Jothy Voidwalker as a piece of graveyard hate can be relevant. But the deck, is not 100% reliant on Underworld Breach. You can sometimes just draw your deck with the One Ring and win with Thassa's Oracle that way, or you can win, of course, with the Progenitor Ooze.
It's like both players are going to be taking a mulligan here down to 6. Baker likely aggressively mulliganing for some disruption or an early start, where Sean Moss very likely just looking for solid playable. It's kind of the dynamic nature of mulligans when you're playing combo versus like a mid-rangey interactive deck like Rakdos Scam.
Yeah. Now, with the Preordains and the Considers in the Twiddle Storm list, you're not as dependent on having Lotus Field or Sylvan Scrying in your opening hand as the Pioneer Lotus Field deck is. You can keep a hand that just has a couple lands and some cantrips, and then find your Lotus Field later, especially when you mulligan.
How big of a deal is Preordain for this Twiddle Storm deck? Do you think it's the reason why it's being successful today so far, or do you think it's just another good card?
I would lean more towards the latter. You know, if you had to replace Preordain with a different cantrip, even Sleight of Hand or Serum Visions or something, it wouldn't make a huge difference, but it definitely makes a difference. Preordain is a significantly better card. This deck is really made by the One Ring. The fact that you can now turn your Twiddles into either cards or mana, because every combo deck sort of runs on an engine that generates both cards and mana. And when you're piloting the decks, and you know what you're doing, you can see which resource that you're more restricted on and lean towards using your engine to generate more of one or the other.
Effects to look for the others.
Exactly. So the fact that you have now that versatility in your ostensibly weakest cards, your Twiddle effects, is really what makes this deck go.
All right, looks like we are underway here. Baker with a turn 1 Thoughtseize looks at a 5-card opener from Sean Moss with 3 lands, including a Lotus Field, Underworld Breach, and Vizier of Tumbling Sands.
Yeah. Now, on the other side of the coin, when you're playing against combo decks, you want to get in their head and think, which resource are they most constricted on? Do they not have mana? Do they not have cards? And then try to hammer one of those as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Because if you try to hit both semi-equally, you'll probably fail at both. You really want to go hard at one or the other. And it looks like Baker going to try to limit the mana.
Yeah, it takes the Vizier over the Underworld Breach, opposite of what he did last game, but has another Thoughtseize in hand, so likely just thinking, he's not going to cast Breach for a while, so I have more time for that Thoughtseize to take that from him as well.
This could also signal that he has a piece of Graveyard Hate in hand. Could have a Jothy Voidwalker or that sideboard on License Hearse.
Baker quickly puts a land from the top of the deck into play. Maybe didn't have a second land until just now. Finds Basic Swamp, and here's a Jothy Voidwalker, and that is going to make Underworld Breach a dead card.
But plenty of answers for it from this deck. And speaking of, there's one.
Including the Echoing Truth, which was left on top with the Hedge Maze. Here's a Flooded Strand. Sean likely going to pass back here, holding up the Echoing Truth. Probably going to bounce Voidwalker or make sure that Blood Moon doesn't ruin his day.
Yeah, going to need to keep an island around for Blood Moon is Sean Moss, so I wouldn't be surprised to not see Lotus Field be played next turn. Wait till you have 3 lands so you can play it and have an island.
Sometimes you don't have that luxury, but Sean may. This 3-point attack here. Oh, another land off the top for Baker, and now we're going to be seeing a 3-drop. I'm curious if it's a Blood Moon. If it is, you have to imagine Baker is going to be feeling pretty good about that right up until the point where it gets bounced.
But with Echoing Truth, you got to be careful because you only have 1 turn.
Right, but you also get to play the Lotus Field for free under Blood Moon. Like the Lotus Field doesn't make you sack 2 lands, and then you go get Island and say go. Yeah, that's fine. Nice Blood Moon, bro.
Yeah.
I'll ramp twice. Here's Fable the Mirror Breaker, though. That's another powerful 3-drop. Not quite as terrifying for Sean as Blood Moon, but still very strong.
Yeah, keeps the pressure on, lets him dig towards one more piece of disruption, and I'm sure he's feeling like one more piece of disruption, and I think I've got this. Because, this is going to be probably a 3-turn clock with the various fetch lands in Sean's deck. He's fallen to 16 here. You need to find 1 more point of damage to turn this into a 3-turn clock.
All right, so Voidwalker should be eating that Flooded Strand. We're going to get our spotter to check on that in just a moment. But basically everything that would go to the graveyard here needs to be exiled. Oh, they caught it anyway.
With a void counter.
Good job. All right, Flooded Strand going to get exiled.
There was a steam vents found. Yeah, it looks like only the one Horizon land in this deck, that one hedge maze for Sean Moss. So no additional surveil there.
Steam Vents is the land, not island. Very curious, but I guess no Blood Moon on turn 3 means maybe I don't have to care about it for at least a turn or two.
And wants access to red mana. So the red mana that's going to deal with this Dothy Voidwalker.
We're going to float some mana before we play the Lotus Field, so maybe we're going to have a pretty cool turn here.
Sure.
Ooh, Cycle Vizier, that's always scary.
Okay, so use the 2 mana to cycle Vizier. All these cards are being exiled, so the Underworld Breach is still not effective.
Yeah. Hopefully going to find the One Ring, but did find Wish. Can maybe wish for something cool next turn. Chapter 2, Fable, coming down. Sean, though, can float 3 blue in response to a Blood Moon or something, and then Echoing Truth it after. No discards from Baker. That's got to be scary if you're Sean.
Yeah, that's not a good feeling. You wanted to see both cards get discarded. Discard 2 lands, draw 2 lands.
Okay, but it looks like Baker has something good to do this turn. Sean going to be heading down to 11 after that 5-point attack.
Another Thoughtseize.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with 3 mana left over, you can't Echoing Truth in response for anything particularly good.
Could just tag the Goblin just to get damage off the table, but you really have to find something to answer this Voidwalker if you want your Underworld Breaches to do anything. Moss looks like he's about to just reveal the hand instead of casting the Echoing Truth. I kind of like that, just because I don't really think the Echoing Truth does enough, just targeting the Goblin.
Yeah, and I imagine the Thoughtseize will take the Wish.
That is what I would imagine as well.
If I'm Sean Moss, at this point, I'm thinking I need to find a One Ring, because that's my way of winning without using the graveyard.
Let's get Wish on screen. Wish is a relatively new card that we don't get to see too much, but it's reminiscent of the, I believe, Odyssey block. Wish effects like Burning Wish, Onslaught block. From like
they were in Judgment.
Odyssey, Torment. I was right the first time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Burning Wish, Cunning Wish, these were excellent effects that allowed you to get very specific things from the sideboard, like instant sorceries, enchantments. Wish itself.
What were the other 3?
See, there was Death Wish, Burning Wish, Cunning Wish, Living Wish, and no one ever remembers the White Wish because it got enchantments, and the enchantments suck.
And it cost 5.
Yeah.
For some reason. It got the worst card type and cost the most mana. It's Golden Wish.
Golden Wish, okay. And then, but Wish itself is kind of a play on those, getting something out of the sideboard. But it forces you to play it immediately, so it has like a cool little clause to it.
And Sean Moss here is stuck on the 3 mana, so doesn't really have much use for the Wish at this point, but still probably the best card in the hand.
All right, so a couple considers fired off end of turn. We're going to go back Sean Moss's way. Empty graveyard thanks to the Voidwalker. We'll see if he's able to cobble together a cool turn.
Interesting to know what Baker's last card is. Maybe a Bowmaster, because that would reduce the clock and give you effectively another piece of disruption. So Voidwalker would cover 1 ring, and Bowmaster would cover ring. Voidwalker covers Breach.
I feel like Bowmaster would have come down in response to that consider, though, yeah?
Yeah, true. It's like, what else?
I don't know what it is either, then. I'm trying to think, too.
That's what
It's got to be an instant or sorcery, because he didn't discard it. Maybe it's a not dead after all on the Voidwalker.
Yeah, maybe trying to protect the Voidwalker that way. I can see it.
Maybe it's a Shieldred, didn't have quite enough mana to go Thoughtseize plus Shieldred.
Found land and the 1 ring. This is exactly what Sean Moss needed to get back into this game.
Sean is going to go ahead and draw a card while there's no Bowmaster in play. Going to go back Baker's way. Chapter 3, Fable coming.
This is going to be an attack for 5. Sean Moss will fall to 3, then take 1 from the 1 ring, go to 2.
No, 1 ring is protecting from the 5-point attack. So, going to be going down to 7.
So.
Oh, a Bone Crusher Giant off the top. That can't target Sean, but it can target Brian Baker himself, and that lets him attack for 5 here.
Yeah, so can stop himself, attack for 5. Does that do anything?
Well, it makes it so Sean has the combo next turn or be dead.
Yeah, so Sean would go to 3, then take 1, fall to 2 from the 1 ring. And yeah, would basically need to find the goods immediately, and I think only has Breach Truth in hand. There might be a third card. Yeah, there's the card he drew off of the One Ring.
Okay, so I'm seeing tap 2. Seems like that's what we're going to do. Stomp Self. Take 2 down to 9. Attack for 5. Then we can go land plus cast Bone Crusher Giant.
You'll get another treasure from the Goblin Shamans. So cast Bone Crusher regardless.
Good call. That's why you put it in the deck. It's not quite lethal, but that's why you put it in the deck.
Yeah, it could also prevent a mana from Sean Moss in the next turn if he draws a shock land or, you know, the game is likely to end on your next turn. So I'm of the opinion that you do all you can this turn. Maybe you run afoul of a second copy of the ring, but that's going to buy Sean turns anyway.
So, Dauthi Voidwalker can play Consider. So we're going to fetch Rakdos Theater first. We're going to see what the top card of the deck is. If it's something like a Sheoldred, we can draw it immediately, play it, and that shuts down the One Ring. I like this play from Brian.
Yeah, I like that. Giving himself the most options.
Benches a land. I still think the Bone Crusher Giant puts you on a severe clock is worth, and it looks like Baker is going to make that play. Put him down to 10, or from 10 to 8, but his life total not really mattering here.
Yeah, could end up getting like grape shotted out, I guess, if Sean isn't able to go all the way off. Maybe you small ball to get 8. That would be a great way to end this match.
All right, 2 treasures. Putting Sean down to 3. 2 from the One Ring next turn. Here's a cast Bone Crusher Giant.
I've put it all on the table. Pass the turn. Cross my fingers.
Yep. See what Sean Moss can do.
Okay. Falls to 2 on the upkeep. Gets to see a card for turn, then 2 more off the ring. See a preordained drawn. That's a good one. Did we not take the wish off of the discard spell?
I'm not certain. I was too busy talking about how cool Wish was. All right, we're going to start by drawing 2. There you go. All right, we're having a little bit of a tech issue. Maybe someone sat on it. Sat on the iPad.
We know Sean's a 2.
What is happening?
And, well, Baker being at 8 is relevant.
Oh, Bricker. 27 to 8. All right, both players at 8 life. Sean Moss, or sorry, Sean's at 2 with a One Ring at 2.
I think I see Hidden Strings.
Okay, so we're going to bounce something and float a mana, which means we can Hidden Strings. It looks like we're going to bounce Dauthi Voidwalker.
So the Echoing Truth will go to the graveyard.
Yeah.
Unlike damage spell. No, that is not exiled.
Yeah, let's go tell him real quick if we can. That's very important.
Yes. A damage spell would end up being exiled because the Voidwalker is still on the battlefield while the spell finishes resolving, because the creature doesn't die until after state-based actions are taken.
Right. It's very weird with just the damage spells.
But yeah, if it's a destroy spell or a bounce spell, the creature leaves the battlefield as part of the spell resolving, and the spell going to the graveyard is the last part of it resolving. So it will go to the graveyard after Dauthi Voidwalker has left the battlefield.
Okay, so we have Hidden Strings here, which we can play to target the One Ring and the Lotus Field. And
that's so sick.
I think the game's about to be over. We do have Underworld Breach in hand still, I think, from earlier, but maybe that was one of the takes.
No, the Breach has been there.
Do it again.
1 mana
Gain
floating.
A mana, so draw 4.
Blue floating, draw 4. I love this deck. I hope Sean wins.
What if he wins a tournament? Does that change your deck for next month's event?
It's already an option. I have a list up on my laptop that's been up for 5 days.
Ross is one of those people who doesn't close tabs.
Yep. Otherwise, I'll forget it exists.
Yeah. You don't think you forget it exists on the 40 tabs you have open?
No, I know what all these are.
Okay.
You think I haven't been thinking about this deck? You're wrong.
Okay. So, where we're at right now is this One Ring is at 5. but Sean is likely going to win the game this turn. Every time he plays a Twiddle effect, he can either generate some mana or generate big burst of cards drawn.
Or if it's hidden strings, both.
Yeah. Or if it's Underworld Breach, all of it. Forever.
Here's a Vizier. That's some more mana and another card.
This is one of those decks that when you're playing this on Magic Online, it's like Solitaire or whatever. You just go as fast as you can, casting spells kind of at random in ways that generate cards and mana, just based on whatever one you're lacking the most. Sean on camera here, trying really hard not to mess up. And here's Underworld Breach. And that's going to do it. It's going to untap some stuff, draw some more cards, and boy, I tell you.
All we need to do now is generate enough mana that Wish for Tome Scour becomes deterministic.
Baker was so close. Bone Crusher Giants anti-ring ability just not quite enough because you can't choose your opponent as the target for it, even though it does take away the preventative stuff.
Yeah, had Thoughtseize Voidwalker, really needed a third piece of disruption. From there, like had a decent clock. The Fable added a little bit, but it wasn't as much of a clock as another Voidwalker or a Bowmaster would have been. Fable was kind of the weakest card for him in this game.
I mean, Fable is one of those cards that's excellent against mid-range, and it allows you to turn pseudo-dead cards into potential actionable spells. We saw Baker choose not to discard either thing, and instead going for the Thoughtseize and holding up Bone Crusher Giant, it seemed. And ultimately, that Bone Crusher Giant wasn't good enough. Maybe we should have thrown that one back.
Yeah. And, of course, Sean looked like he was pretty stuck even after the first two pieces of disruption, found with those considers fourth land and the One Ring, which is exactly what he needed.
All right, well, we have drawn almost the entire deck here. Sean has the mana floating off screen on his life pad. Sean is, I don't know, World's Fair, million cards, can make 100 mana with Lotus Field and Twiddles, can wish for Tome Scour to finish decking himself so that the Thassa's Oracle is lethal, and this is basically all she wrote. Brian Baker, tapped out, about to be dead. Just depends on how he wants to do it. Just don't target Bone Crusher Giant with anything. All you gotta do is just don't do that.
And really just going to be kicking himself that he didn't play that Grief earlier in game one.
Yeah. But this Twiddle Storm deck looking pretty impressive. Kind of won from nothing, but that's the power of the One Ring. I think that One Ring card might be okay. I think it might be around for a while.
That's pretty good.
It's either going to be around for forever or for not forever.
Those are the two options.
Preordain is cast. This dude got so many cards in hand, but I guess he just knows that with the mana floating and a million Twiddles in hand, he can just... He's looking for something extremely specific, and it's probably just Oracle.
I think he's just trying to win without having to do the Tome Scour stuff.
Yeah, it is rather annoying.
Probably has the Thassa's Oracle in hand.
Wonder if he has fewer than 9 cards left in deck. Just doing a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright. Untap, make some more mana. +2. Every Twiddle effect on the guild or the Lotus Field is +2. Baker says, how are you killing me? He says,
Easily.
Oracle
That's how I'm
of
killing
Thassa.
you.
You got it.
I'm killing
got it,
you
dude.
easily.
Baker's like, I don't want to be here anymore. And thank you so much for that tight concession.